So you thought we had some pretty bare prairie down there?
Well, it was funny because it was down at Finnegan yesterday, and I thought, yeah, I guess our hills are are different. Are different. They're not so gravelly. They're pretty sagey right now, so it's very dry at Finnegan.
Is it?
Just right there, yeah. You know how spotty it is. But yes, I was showing John the pictures because.
Here's this is
The
the
old
railroad.
track, yeah.
Everything's
Is it on whose land? Murray land. All right. All right, we will reconvene. And we are at line painting, right?
We are. How exciting.
My favorite.
This one just comes from efforts of looking at cost-cutting measures. I'm not sure that I wholeheartedly believe in it myself, but anyway, following what Alberta Transportation has implemented in cost-cutting measures at the provincial level, they have gotten down to painting one shoulder line and potentially the center line every year, alternating years which shoulder they paint. And with that, there's definitely some savings involved that can be afforded to our taxpayers on that. So in 2019, the department painted 587,782 linear meters of line paint at a cost of $111,678. In 2018, the department painted approximately 550. What did you feed me for lunch? Jeez. And then I go from linear meters to kilometers, like good grief, right?
Yeah, make it easier, will you?
555,000 linear meters of county paved roads, consuming approximately 21,000 liters of paint at 105. County Council, I need to remind you that when we're painting lines, anytime that we do an overlay project or something like that, the contractor's on the hook for doing the line painting in the first year. So if we ever see a dip in how much line painting we're doing, it's probably because of another program where we've done an overlay and the contractors had to paint, because there is at least one dip in some of the historical numbers and stuff. But on average, a 4-year annual average cost of $105,000 is what we spend doing line painting. If we were to implement what Alberta Transportation is doing, no matter how we do it, if we paint the south and the east white shoulder line, or the north and east, or whatever kind of program we want to do, we anticipate that we could probably save about $35,000 per year to the taxpayers. What does it do? It doesn't really do anything much. The white lines, they don't look the greatest after a year. They are worn. The plow blades running over top of them all winter and stuff. You can see it on the provincial roads around here. But it's not something that's of safety concern to motorists and stuff. If Alberta Transportation has determined that they can do it, it's an acceptable standard to them, where they have higher traffic volumes on other roads. There's no reason why it can't be acceptable to ourselves as well, if council so chooses to venture down this road.
Mark, I just wondered, like when you paint a center line, do you paint one other line as well at the same time?
Generally, they'll paint the center and one shoulder, so that way...
I just wondered why they didn't just forget the shoulders.
Yeah, so that way they don't pay for that truck to come all the way back down the same road only painting one line, because...
Gotcha.
But most of our roads, you have to come back down them anyway to get to where you're going to go next.
Is this a puzzle?
No.
Well, there's a little difference between painting and just driving down the road.
Yeah.
But honestly, I read this the other day, and this morning, it's the first time I recognized it actually happened on 875. You just don't even notice it. So if we can save 35,000, go for it.
Estimated per year pen and paint prices.
And that's why I asked, because I thought if we could save 70 by just doing the center line, but if they're going to do it anyhow, I get that. Okay.
You want to go that far? Yeah.
I must be a terrible driver. I want those lines, and I want them clear and bright. And we have heavy rains, we have fog, we have snow. I need those lines, especially when there's not a lot of shoulder. So I don't know. I was reading it and I thought, well, $35,000 is $35,000, but if it's a safety issue, if I'm the average driver, which maybe I'm not, then I want those lines.
If you fly a little lower, you can see them better.
Is there anyone else that has noticed anything? Tracy?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Anne Marie on it. To me, if it was $350,000, it would be a really big, it'd be a no-brainer that to not do it. But for me, it's not that much. Plus, I do agree with the safety aspect of it. I do.
Any other comments or concerns? Ellen?
I thought that at first too, but then I read that Alberta Transportation, and you know how they are, how for safety-wise, they must have think that this is safe enough to do. They would have never done it any other way.
Anything else? It's pretty one way or the other. So, need a motion? Mr. Hammergen?
I moved option 1.
The recommended action?
Yep.
Any further discussion on it? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Sure hope I don't get into an accident, Anne-Marie, and come back to Drainage with the EID, our ongoing partnership.
So in 2010, County and the EID Board entered into a partnership for improvements to drainage courses throughout Newell, prioritizing areas of overland flooding impacting homes and businesses. Funding of $1 million annually from each party was agreed to. To date, the partnership is completed. Summary of them: Castles, Rolling Hills, Scandia, Rainier, and Millicent, each respectively for 15.2, 36.8, 33, 65, and 7.2 kilometers. In progress work, as well as the 5-year outlook for work, include Rainier South, which I just got word the other day that Rainier South is now done, which included 30.4 kilometers. Rainier North, 38.3 kilometers, is in progress. Bow City is in the planning stage right now with 13.9 kilometers. And Rosemary, looking at 2020, looking to be 99.3 kilometers of roadside drainage that needs to be done. EID seems fairly ambitious with that, thinking that they can do it in 3-4 years, and I'm thinking it's going to take us 6 or 7 years. So looking back, the work that we outlined in the original plan that was attached to the package was thought to be capable of being completed in 3 years, and here we are in 2019, 9 years later from inception of the partnership, and we haven't completed what we had planned originally. And with that, we did take one step back that I don't have in here, that we were funding at $1.5 million a year to get work. We did do a cost-cutting measure of $500,000, I want to say 3 years ago now, 2 years maybe. So been going at it for $1 million a year as of late here. Attached to these are a number of figures, figure 1, 2, and 3. Figure 1 is Matt's 30,000 foot outlook from the sky, showing where the areas flagged for that are still prone to flooding and whatnot. From that map, if you look down in the Rolling Hills country, Scandia kind of stuff, it looks like there are still some concerns and stuff there, but it's really how many concerns are being iterated through those areas. When you zoom into figure 2, which is provided, the yellow almost disappears throughout the Rolling Hills, Scandia, Rainier areas, some of which is still in progress with Rainier and Bow City for 2020. Castles, there was a second phase to Castles, that's why it's showing at the top of figure 2 as being a little bit bright yellow there yet. When we go to figure 3, Bazzano and Rosemary areas light up quite well, and when we were back at figure 1, they lit up as being red, showing that there are numerous issues logged through Newell connected for flooding. Most of those issues are actually logged by staff, where we saw overland flooding, plug culverts, poor drainage, and everything, but there are some in there from the public. So anyway, with what we've got going on here today, you got a couple of options that council support: decreasing funding of the program in effort to reduce costs due to loss of revenue streams and the need to reduce expenditures, or county council supports continuing the program as it is, funded $1 million annually from both parties. And right now my recommended action is that you continue supporting the program, because it is helping us not just with drainage and protecting of ratepayers' homes and property, but is also helping us out with our roads, I think, in the long term of things. So just thought I would throw the other big ticket item in public works for kind of project-based things that we've presented today as this, and get your feedback on what you'd like to do and how to proceed.
So Mark, there is an end plan to this. It has taken longer, but the end plan should leave the EID County of Newell in good shape again for the future.
Hopefully great shape for the future. With all road surface ditches, there's ongoing maintenance that has to happen. We're digging ditches bigger, deeper, hold more volume of water, but they do silt. And eventually they're going to have to get redone or cleaned out on If you do cleaning on a regular basis, they'll be all right, or you leave them be and you go through a little bit higher cost to rehab them in a bigger manner in the future if you were just leave them, right? So.
So when, this question's towards you, Matt, when you're putting things in that, in your cost to draw on the mill rate, where do you balance this cost? Like, does it go to agriculture? Does it go to land, to residential? Does it go to oil and gas? Like, how do you divide out that used to be $1.5 million, but now $1 million expenditure?
Must be a mind reader, because I was thinking, I really want to ask who benefits from the EID drainage program. Who should pay for the EID drainage program? As it stands right now, this would be shared proportionately by the current structure that we have, which was that first slide. So if we're funding $1 million, 86.8% or 868,000 is coming from non-residential, 107,000 from residential, and 26,000 from farmland.
So it's pretty out of whack.
If I am to assume that the farmland benefits from the drainage, yes, but there's also residential out there. Mark's heat map, I believe, is based on complaints received through Newell Connect, so it would be interesting to see which category is driving the complaints, whether it's residences or actual farm operators. But we collected a total of $856,000 in farmland taxes in 2019.
Mark?
I'd just like to add that this was never designed around draining farmland. This was for the purposes of getting roadside ditches and major drains to drain so that water gets away from buildings, structures, residences, and businesses. Farmland drainage, just because I would have to say that because we're talking about it, anybody that's looking to drain farmland needs to go through Water Act approval, through Alberta Environment, make their application, because that's all groundwater recharging and all that kind of business that they have regulated under the Water Act and Wetlands Act as well.
Anne-Marie?
I think everybody benefits from this program. Hamlets, smaller villages, Rosemary. So it's not only the farmers. The roads stay in better condition if there's better drainage. So I think everybody benefits from this one.
Lionel?
Well, and you know, we teamed up with EID, who we haven't teamed with very often in the past, and I think it's been a very successful joint venture. I would hate to see us renege on our share of this at this time. They've gone a long ways. We're 3/4 of the way through it. I don't think we should waver on this one, personally.
Other thoughts?
Do we want to make that a motion? What was it? Option 2. I would make the motion for option 2.
Okay, Lionel has moved that we stay the course with this one. I think it is an investment in our region, for sure. And hopefully the amount of money will decrease eventually, although we slow down the process by decreasing money. But Mark, some seasons we weren't spending all the money either, right? Because of the weather?
No, just looking at it right now, and only going back so many years, but 2014, we had $933,000 in expenditure. 2015, we jumped to $1,672,000 because we carried forward some funding and stuff because we didn't get things done. 2016 was 1.3 million, 2017 1.48 million, 2018 we only spent 707,000, and so far in 2019 we're at 459,000. So I'm guessing we'll be around that $900,000 mark this year. That includes any land acquisition. EID does the surveying, the construction costs, but also land agent with the land acquisition for. And sometimes we've had to bury overhead power lines to get past pivots and stuff. So.
All right, any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Splitting the non-residential assessment class and tax rate, something that's been talked about for years. Matt?
Mark's just asking if we're going to go back and settle anything on those previous items that he had that we didn't make any solid determinations on.
Right.
Shoulder
Shoulder
poles
pole.
and non-residential dust.
And non-residential dust abatement. Or if you want to leave it up to Mark to throw something into interim budget and defend it at that time.
How are you feeling, guys? We have the shoulder pull and the study, I guess, issue. We didn't do that one, did we? No, we left that one. And the gravel, aggregate.
Aggregate, you said to discontinue with whatever. You didn't make a motion on that.
So we're good. We're good. So is it only the shoulder pulls?
Shoulder pulls and the non-residential dust abatement if we were going to withdraw any roads that we do at 100% county cost.
Oh, yes. Well, we'll go back to the shoulder pulls and just see where if people are more sure about what they want to do, and that also involves the study. And I don't think it's got any easier. My plan didn't work. Anne-Marie and Brian.
I'll make the motion to go with option 2, that we keep supporting the program as it was planned and revisiting the program based on findings of the 2020 gravel study.
Okay. Brian, did you have something to add?
I was going to make the opposite motion for number 1. I just don't see how we're going to be able to fund everything that we've put forward, and other than drawing on our reserves. And I think I like this program. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think the option 2 is something that we can continue.
So your motion is out there on reverse, but Anne-Marie's in the positive. Anne-Marie?
And to add to my motion is 2020, we're done with the program. It's only 1 year. And I think that there were some people around the table that agreed that we needed to have a study, so at least we have something on paper that we can base our future decisions on. And so that's why I thought, I'll make this motion, let's finish the program, it's only 1 more year, do the study to help us make decisions in the future.
Okay. Any other comments on the motion? Oh, Holly? Any other comments? Anne-Marie, Kelly?
Well, again, as a reaction to Holly, why would you, in my mind, it's not smart to stop the program 1 year away from completion. We all believed in this shoulder pull program. It was based on research, so let's finish it. It's only 1 year. We're not talking 5 years. 1 year, we're done with that program that we started.
Kelly?
Yeah, and my comment is kind of a reaction as well. This is only preliminary budget talks. We can flag it. We can also, as Matt suggested, take that study money from the infrastructure fund. So I think leave it in for now for preliminary discussions, and then maybe we can reroute it later. That's my thinking.
Well, this is certainly the first round, and I think these guys brought us. This is a bit different format because some years we don't make decisions today. We just sort of hear a lot of information. So the decisions made today will show up in the budget and does not mean that they can't be removed, correct? Yes. Kevin?
So, Madam Reeve, I'll just comment quickly on, I mentioned it to council before, but the big three items, salaries, contract service, materials and supplies, the hard costs of municipalities. The other big one's depreciation, but that's a non-cash item. Our county is 37 million less than our average peer group over a 10-year period. So if you think there's lots of meat on the bone, there's a reason for that, and I believe it's lean. If you take the 8.3 million from that we've already talked about from road savings, you're down to 29 million, but that's still a huge number. And so while it may sound easy to make cuts, it's often difficult. And even cutting back on staff time, when you have one or two positions everywhere throughout the organization, it's really difficult to eliminate a position if they're specialized. So not saying cuts aren't possible, I'm just saying there's not a lot of meat from what I can see with our peer groups. I think, again, I think the budgets have been managed exceptionally well. The one good thing about where we are with our capital asset program is our depreciation or our life of our remaining assets is in the top 10% of all municipalities in Alberta. So that's a good thing. If there is going to be savings down the road, I believe it's because of our capital assets and the conditions of them. So I just wanted to mention that.
And I also believe that this particular project, like Anne-Marie, like we are very close to finishing. And by having a plan into the future, doesn't mean we're going to spend money next year. It just means that we have a plan, which I believe is very important. We need plans. It's the only way. We would never have done the paving that we've accomplished without agreeing on a plan. So I think these plans are important. So anyhow, that we have a motion on the.
Yeah, we're making motions today that we support, but once we get the hard numbers, then we will actually be doing some cutting again, I'm sure. So this is only preliminary, and I do support this program because we've got 1 year and it's a good program. So that's just my comment.
My comment would be, of course it's a good program, but we're looking at tighten our belts. And to postpone the plan, we can just postpone the plan until we know have a few more answers from the government as well, from Alberta. So, yeah, I'm not in favor. I would say let's wait and see what the budget is going to show, and we can look at it next year.
And I guess we can do that. When do we plan to have another meeting? We have to make a decision today on our next meeting, Matt?
Sure, if you guys want to set the next meeting date, we can do that as well.
But we'd like to know the provincial budget before we do that.
Yeah, I believe there's an RFD to you in the next agenda package.
Okay.
I've recommended like that first week ending November 1st or whatever, before you head off to convention.
So we can make some decisions today that are recommendations or whatever, and they're not revocable or irrevocable, I should say.
Right, like really what we're the benefit we get out of this at management level is what's the tone around the table and what level of confidence can we have in the items that we're bringing to you. So if the tone today was slash and burn, we would have taken that. But it's more, let's wrap up these programs, these plans that we have. If we need to draw on reserves to balance 2020 budget, we'll roll that in. It sounds like you're open to seeing some of that happen.
Today.
Today, yeah.
All right, anything else on the motion? Great, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. So that's that one. And then the dust abatement for non-residential. We have the list there, and Mark.
Would this one be better if council had a map so you could reference these roads?
Yeah, I mean, we can look them up, sort of know where lots of them are. If we
Doesn't
want to
matter.
delay, it would help. Kelly?
I'll answer that by making a motion for option number 1. See how it flies.
Can someone repeat that? My computer isn't working properly. What is option 1?
To support recommendations and reductions in county 100% funded locations, proposed to include 15,000 linear meters, 15.5 clicks with an estimated savings of 71,000. So that would take out all of this list of 19,
The list in red.
just the red this year. The black would be in the wings, waiting.
We could have further discussions on that, yes.
Okay. Any comments further to the motion? Any speaking against the motion to help me make my mind up? Come on, you guys. Okay. I'll see what you're thinking. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay. So that gives you some guidance, Mark, some things to go forward with, and we'll get a date. So that takes us now to thank you, Mark, for your time on this and
Thank you.
your patience with us. So now we'll go to item 2.4, I believe. Back to Matt with finance and the non-residential assessment class and tax rates.
All right, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I'm going to try and give you Cole's notes version. We looked at this last year as well. So we, last government opened up the door for us to split our non-residential class. I thought it might be timely to consider whether we want to put that structure in place that gives us the flexibility to potentially split our non-residential rates. So if we have if we think that our linear properties are able to bear a higher share of the taxes versus our small businesses with up to 50 employees, if we want to play with those tax rates, we would need to put this into place. Where we are seeing a decline in our linear assessment, and depending on what our approach is for dealing with that $2.5 million that we're looking for today, if we just slash that, if we take it from reserves, if we're looking at like a 2 or 3 year plan to increase our non-residential rates, or we put that burden on farmland, we put it on residents, wherever we end up. If we choose to leave it, say, well, it came from non-residential, the rest of non-residential has to pick it up. So we're looking at $2.5 million from everybody who's left. You're going to have a similar situation that Calgary has had with the hollowing out of their downtown core, where it becomes far more burdensome for a small business to bear an increased share than it does for maybe a larger oil and gas multinational to pick that up. So I'm not saying we have to split the rate, but if we want to have that policy option, we should probably start looking at developing that program now. So when our 2020 tax rate bylaw time comes to consider, we have the option if you want that option open to you.
Matt, how complicated is that? Like you cite the less than under 50 and under as small business. So do you have any idea how many, like how that would play out with our tax base? Like how many over 50, how many under? And in my mind, small business is hardly, I mean, under 50 is a pretty big business, isn't it? It's sort of big and bigger businesses.
Yeah, and that's I think where the conversation ended last year, was like how, like, where do you decide? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 30? Is it 50?
Yeah.
All I know is the regulation gives you up to 50. Cypress County has looked at it, and they just sent out to all their commercial properties, here's a form. You need to declare whether you've got 50 or less. Send it back. If you send it back and it's verified, then you are now subject to that potentially lower rate. And if you don't, then, well, you don't get it. So I think it can be as convoluted and complicated as you want it to be, or as straightforward as possible. When it was first being contemplated, I thought, oh, we're going to have to do a business licensing program, which I really don't want to do because I'm lazy. But I think it can be pretty straightforward getting these things in place. So it would mean we need to draft a couple of bylaws and figure out the administrative side of it. And I think that's really what we're looking for direction on today is, do you want us doing that administrative work? Is it a policy option you'd like to have available?
Wayne?
I really think I like this program because right now Calgary's got, you could have a small business and your taxes be crazy, and a bigger corporation, they've got basically got the same tax rate. Am I not right?
I can't speak to what Calgary's rates are. I'm not sure.
But we can actually, for our small, we can support our smaller businesses better this way.
Right. So the example I put in the package, and it's probably convoluted to look at, but maybe I'll just walk through it here, where I showed our non-residential assessment in our tax bylaw was $3.3 million. Our rate, not including the paving tax, was just over 8. That raised $27 million in municipal taxes. The government, so of that 3.3 or 3.3 of that would be classified as non-residential other. The balance is like 51 million in commercial assessment. So if we take this non-residential other and assume that the province is right and we're going to have a 35% reduction in those assessed values, we lose about 295 million in assessment. Multiply that against the mill rate, we're looking at about $2.4 million that just evaporated. So our new expected non-residential other assessment is right around that $3 billion. At the same rate of 2019's 8.08, we'd raise 24 million. What would we have to do to the mill rate to get that 2.3 million back? Well, we'd have to bump it up by about 0.8. So your new rate would be 8.88, which I might point out is still very competitive amongst all MDs for a non-residential rate. Like, I don't think that's unreasonable. That would get you back to that 27 million. The non-residential commercial, you could leave at the existing rate. You'd raise 414, and your whole, you raise the same 27 million. So it gives you that opportunity to let the linear carry that decrease if we think they need to carry that decrease, and leaves your smaller commercial guys alone. Now, I don't believe that this entire $51 million would qualify, but that's kind of the ceiling that we're dealing with, right? So we'd need to find out how much of that 51 actually would qualify for the lower rate, and if it's worth the rub.
So it just gives us flexibility.
Right, like,
And
just because it's there doesn't mean you have to do anything with it. You can keep those rates exactly the same, but if you get to like, what I worry about is the province came in mid-year and just, there goes 2.5. And is that just the tip of the iceberg? So 2.5, I feel like, we can manage that. We have excellent capacity on debt. We have very good savings. We have very competitive mill rates right now. Like, we've got some room where we could move, and we can kind of adjust through this. But if in the spring they throw another 2.5, or if the estimate that they've given us isn't right, like, we're still dealing with this uncertainty, which makes you less comfortable in any kind of long-term decision that you're trying to map out for the municipality. So, right now, you probably could increase your non-residential rate year over year by about 3%, and in 4 years you'll have recaptured that 2.3 based on your new overall non-residential assessment of $3 billion. But if we don't think we want to hit our small businesses with a 3% increase, then this at least gives you the option to do something different with that part.
So what kind of reaction would we expect from the linear people left?
You'd have companies coming with their executive making presentations to council just like they have in the past.
Yeah. Again, I like the concept of the flexibility of it, just in case. And I really hope next time we talk about this budget, that we have a better feel for what the province is up to, because they have really created a monster, I think. Yeah. How many of you feel as though you would like to have this option available to us? So I think it's probably a motion in here somewhere. I think we support the flexibility approach, Matt, because certainly Calgary's mess is awful, and for us to have to drag the small businesses into this as well. It's bad enough that the big business, which is our oil and gas, we're assuming for the most part. I guess, who else is big business?
Your oil and gas, JBS, your Brooks Solar would be in these non-residential. Our power plant out here on the hill would be in there as well. Let's take it back to those taxation principles that the regional working group put out. Ability to pay, fairness. You could maybe argue that this departs from fairness, equity, but you could argue it on ability to pay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that it's safe for you to prepare something that helps us be ready for the various classes. Ellen?
I'm still thinking about the 50 employees. That seems fairly large, doesn't it? That seems like that should be a fairly big business.
I was talking to one outfit here. They have a manufacturing facility just down the road, and he employed about 70. He was saying he's going to have to lay off about 20. You know, so I mean, we drive by these places, and they look like small businesses to me. They employ the people who are paying our taxes, are in the community. I don't know what the right number, or if a right number exists, but that's something you could play with when we bring it in front of you. If you think it should be 30 or 10 or 20. And it will be interesting to maybe send the information out and see what size of businesses we actually have for commercial in the county. Like, there's not a lot. There isn't a lot, but for the ones who are here, they're important. And if there's something we can do to take the edge off, if we're moving to a new normal, I think that would be nice to have the flexibility.
Think there's that many, Matt, then? Like, bulk?
When I look at the total number of properties that roll up into that 51 million of commercial, there's not a lot. Okay. And I didn't break it down between, all right, there's that number of properties, but who owns those properties? Right. I imagine it's even smaller.
Will be interesting, and an interesting discussion. All right. Kelly.
I would like to make a motion for option 1.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Madam Mayor?
Right.
So just so I'm clear on the process, I mean, we've made a motion here, but this would, to create a bylaw, we have to bring this back to council, right?
Right, yeah, so this is just like, Matt, go do some real work kind of a thing, right? And bring it back to us so we can make a real decision on it kind of a thing.
All right. Utility rate increases 242.
All right, everybody really values the ability to go to your tap, turn it on, and have water that you can trust that isn't going to make you sick or kill you. I think everybody also values being able to flush their toilet in a hamlet that has sewer service. Our rates over time, and this is my same, it's the same song and dance I've given you for years, right? We are not cost recovering on utilities, and we should cost recover on utilities. I've updated the utility deficit per service, including amortization, because I think people should be on the hook for the use of the capital. The dollar per month across the different locations varies. You will likely never recover in a place like Rainier that only has 12 services and has to follow all the same environmental standards that everybody else has to, right? You're paying the same fixed cost for NRSC to go out there as you are for a Tilly, which gets a lot closer to cost recovering in a Lake Newell. Last year, Clarence had asked, oh, are we making any progress on this? So that's what this second chart is attempting to show. Are we making progress? It's like back and forth, right? So as soon as you have a water break or a sewer break in Rolling Hills, things go south pretty fast, right? Like those repairs and maintenance are reactionary, and they're very expensive to deal with. So I do think we're making some progress there. Scandia looks really good, right? I mean, in terms of the trend, not the overall $101 deficit per month per service, but that's there for you. What I've proposed is we're looking around 5% across all types of charges. NRSC in recent years has been increasing their per cubic meter rate by 5 cents. I'm suggesting we go up by 10 cents to cover their 5, plus have 5 cents back into our pockets to make some progress on reducing those deficits. So I'm not sure what the appetite is, if we wanted to be more aggressive on annual increases or not. So that's what I was thinking for interim budget for you.
Clarence?
First of all, I'm a big believer in no shock treatment and doing it slow and steady. And my second question is, where does the famous intersection costs go in Rolling Hills? They come in here?
Yeah, your water, sewer, yeah, all in here.
Next time they do it, can we have a guarantee, a warranty on it or something?
Talk to Jeff and Mark on that. I just sit in my office, charge people.
Being facetious.
Faith. Other ideas, Brian?
So the trouble that I have, and I realize it's in regards to the way we treat it, it's a communal system as far as our hamlet charging. But if I look at Tilly, so Tilly did a completely reconstruction, and they have a local improvement tax that satisfies that. And currently their operating is the lowest at 32.21, if I'm reading your numbers correctly, and yet they're paying that 57.52. So, you know, how do you answer that question when they have that local improvement tax, as Scandia does too, when their costs to them are exceeding what the actual our distribution costs are?
So these charts here are showing the net. So this takes the revenues from them, expenses, and shows the gap that's left. So no community is paying full costs on the operating. And this isn't looking at the local improvement side of it, which is settling the debt for those areas. This is just looking at your operating, including that amortization charge. You bring up a good question about, well, our deficit in Tilly is a little bit lower than other places. Should we be paying the same rates? I believe we used to have differential rates a little before my time, or maybe shortly after I got here, they all went standard. So I guess that's a philosophy as well, right? Do we have the same rate and there's no incentive to move to one community over another based on your utility rates? We look at the entire county as you're all in, right? And we want to get to a rate that breaks even across the board, understanding that there's probably always going to be a deficit in Rainier, but Rainier also has a truck fill that services other areas around there. That's valuable. But then the surpluses we get from places like Tilly, Lake Newell, these places that have a high enough population to support those fixed costs, they subsidize the difference. Or do you want to shift to something where we have separate rates and each area kind of pays for their own system, keeping in mind that you'll have quite a bit of volatility potentially on those rates year to year. So then we could go back to, we used to have separate reserves for each area and say, well, let's get that rate high enough that you can accumulate some surplus, and when they have a real bad year, you pull out of that. Remember, I'm lazy, but I'm willing to
You're not lazy.
entertain that stuff, right?
I just remember when there were separate rates. It was awful. Some of the worst discussions around the table, and this is a really good example of user pay and how sometimes it just is impossible. You know, a lot of it was the fact Rainier School, Alcoma was there, and I mean, so this is a really interesting one when it comes to user pay. Holly.
We'd really like to get to the point where it is self-sufficient. what that trend looks like over time to actually replace the tax subsidy with user fees. And like the comments around the table are, we don't want to shock the system. So we've been, if I pop up, I don't know that I've got it here. Yeah, there we go. 2016, a 7% increase, 5%, 7%, 4%. We have been increasing those rates over time, and we're trying to close that gap. One of the other things in Scandia was the water loss that system was experiencing, which I think we finally nipped in the butt a little bit better a couple of years ago, the main leak. So we want to be able to bill for the water that's going through the system.
And it is the goal, for sure. Some of these hamlets, though, over the years, we've decided when we talk about fare or ability to pay, the ability to pay wasn't there, and this, I guess, is not a tax, it's a utility rate. But I think we have to continue, and most communities, other municipalities certainly are making it more user pay. I think Bazzano just went through it and, had open houses. I haven't got a new bill yet. It'll come end of August to see how much it's affected residents in Bazzano, or a non-resident too. So I think we just have to chisel away at this. I really do. So Matt, you're suggesting, where is it?
It's they all come in around 4.5% to 5%, the different rate changes.
And it's, like we always say, people pay more for their cell phones and their satellite TV than some of these utilities, but they seem to freak out about it. Those are really bad times. So if we think we're making some progress on it, is all I hope for. Wayne and Ellen?
I move option 1.
Just to set an acceptable percent. 5, you're thinking? Is that what 2020 budget is about 5? It's sort of like boiling the frog slowly, right? No? Brian, you taught me that one. We do have to have some fun. Cindy, couldn't tell if that was your arm or if it was Kathy's. Yeah, absolutely. And this is part of the pot. This is being subsidized by that pot of money. So why we're looking at, again, more user pay, I guess. So, all right. Did we vote on that motion? No? Question, Ellen?
I don't know, Matt, if you can answer this, but for the average family, what would the impact be?
It's here. Can see the forecast, sort of.
Yeah, so the dollar change per month in your water-based charge and your sewer-based charge, we're looking for another like $3 a month. So 36 plus whatever you consume. So, you know, if you're a sucker like me with 3 daughters who like to shower a lot, you're burning up about 60 cubes every 2 months.
Morning.
So we're looking at another $10 a month. So 120 over the year. Couple of coffees a day for those who drink those fancy coffees. I get my coffee for free when I fill up, right?
So we need to vote on this motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Increasing the farmland tax rate. Lane.
Oh, this one's Matt still.
I was like hopeful you would run with it.
Oh, sorry.
Wanted to see what you did with it.
You're next, Lane. It's heads up.
I am born and raised a farm kid, right? So I don't have my hate on for farmers. I appreciate the rural way of life. I think we have the ability to pay, our farmers probably have the ability to pay a little bit more for the services that I think they receive. So it's the same song and dance again, right? Farmland doesn't even cover the ag services budget. They should at least cover the ag services budget and 100% of the EID drainage. So, and we've kind of been on a path of raising that mill rate by about 0.75 year over year, and I'm just looking for, that's what's going to come in the interim budget unless you want it to be more aggressive with that. Otherwise, that's what you'll see. We'll raise another $105,000 from our farmland guys.
Questions? Ellen.
So what, per $100,000 assessment, what would that mean to the final increase of taxes?
So 100,000 divided by 1,000 times 0.75. Can anybody do that in their head? Because I think it's like $7.50. And you will not find, well, no, I had to eat my words last year because there is like, I think one section out there that's assessed at just over 100. But farmland is, the very best farmland in this province is valued at $450, irrigated farmland for assessment purposes. I had asked Kevin Halstead here, let me just pop this up. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be talking to council about the pie and how do we split the pie based on assessment. And do you have any idea what the market value of our farmland is? He said, well, I can give you a range, and then he gave me about 10 prices. Irrigation pivot, Brooks area, average $7,500 per acre. Wheels, $4,500 per acre. Flood, $3,750 per acre. So we've already got built into our assessment, which is legislated by the province. Farmland's getting a pretty good deal in that formula based on that. And that's where I'm really pushing. We have to play with that rate if we're not comparing apples to apples and looking at the benefits that those ratepayers receive. I don't think it's unwarranted that you continue to try to get that to a place where they pay for a little bit more of the benefits that they receive. And I think we're unique among a lot of irrigated areas where our irrigation farmers pay a rate of $0 per acre. You just got to go down to Tabor. I think TID was around $14 an acre for water. St. Mary's was, I think, north of 20 last time I checked. So there's a lot of good value that our irrigators get out of being part of the EID.
Matt, thanks, Kevin. Those assessment rates used by the province are 1990s values, is that correct?
Yeah, the early 90s was the last time they looked at them. I think when they notified us about the shallow gas assessment. Like, well, nobody's looked at this since 2005.
Yeah.
All right, well, there's something else that needs to get looked at first if we're basing it on the last time something was reviewed. But, and I'm not convinced that really farmland should be taxed based on market value of the land. I don't know that that is the right system either, but something needs to level up.
Do you think the government would ever be brave enough to decrease something for farmland like they did for shallow gas, except in the opposite direction?
Not if they know my dad and his friends.
Well, I know. Isn't it funny? Yes. Because that's basically what they did. They made a huge adjustment. Yes, Wayne.
And also on farmland, you can have $1 million potato storage and you don't get taxed at all on that, do you? Or do you? I might be wrong on that.
No, ag buildings are something special too, right? So.
Comments? I think we have agreed in the past that we've sort of been looking at this, edging it up. And so your option is to continue that trend, and it's a 0.75 is what the chart is.
Yeah, so looking at year over year, and now that we do the 1 year budget plus 3 forecast years, I'd include that increase in the forecast years so we can see how that shakes out for us as well. And I'd continue to increase that until we're at least equivalent to that non-residential rate.
And this year you've also, or maybe you did last year, I just don't remember, having sort of tying it into the Ag Service Board budget as well.
Yeah, and I use that loosely just to illustrate there's value there. I know Ag Services provides other not just farm-specific services, but I think there's an argument to be made that Ag does take its toll on roads as well, and I haven't considered roads in here or anything like that, right? So it's all who should be paying for what, and is that pie right? And I think the pie's probably not right for farmland.
Kelly.
For this budget year, I'm in favor of option 1. I think, and sorry, for this budget discussion today, that's what I'm talking about. If things present between now and November, we may have to look at this again, but for now, I would like to move option 1.
Just so I have my numbers right, we would be going from, on a parcel of, like a number 1 parcel of land, my numbers say it's worth $72,000 based on that $450 per acre.
Yeah, and we actually.
And so that would mean about $44 in taxes. Is that right?
Yeah, and when I've ran the analysis in previous years, like, and I've looked at, all right, impact per customer, tried to get an average, and how these things roll out based on what you actually own out there ranges from a low of like cents, 20 cents, whatever, up to, the biggest landholder ended up paying another $14,000 across everything that they held for the year, kind of thing. So there's not like a real nice tight average.
I understand that, Matt, but I'm just saying that the best farmland, if I own what I think is the best farmland in the county, which is valued at $450 an acre, at 160, a full quarter is $72,000, times it by your mill rate of 6 is about $44. And if we would hold through to that forecast, it would be somewhere around $58 in 2023.
Yeah, there you go. Your math's good.
I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that I'm clear.
Doing the math right, yeah. Yeah, that's correct. So right now, our non-residential rate for 2019, not including the paving tax, was 8.08. Yeah, oil and gas, linear pipelines, the electric lines you see throughout. Yeah, I think there's a strong argument that farmland should pay at least equivalent to the non-residential rate. I think there's a strong argument to say that your farmland rate should actually be higher than your non-residential rate, based on non-residential being assessed at market value and farmland being assessed at a regulated rate. Yeah, I don't think anybody's interested in huge shocks to any system. So each year, and a lot of times the conversation gets fixated on the tax rate. Well, that's only half of the equation, right? Assessment goes up and down each year. What we really boil things down to at the county is what are the total dollars we need to raise to support the budget for the services and programs that we provide. So right now, if we're looking at farmlands on the hook for $800,000, $900,000, if your assessment, the province does something and assessment skyrockets, well, we'd play with that mill rate to stabilize things, right?
Like Matt said, we're not into shock. I'd be surprised if the province touches it. Nobody's wanted to touch it since the 90s. So it would be very interesting. But if they do, I think it would be easier for groups like ours to try and deal with what is fair. Because now we're looking at having to continue to raise it to make it fair to the rest of our pie people, if you remember the pie that we had up there at the start, where, the farmland is a sliver and the rest is not. So we have no desire to shock. We live with these people that pay these bills. I live with one of the ones that complains the most. So, yeah, no one likes their taxes to go up, but they do like municipal services. So. Yeah. Good. Right, and there's other things, so we have to remember there's another couple of mills added on to the non-res, right? The pavement tax, correct?
Well, and farmland pays the pavement tax as well. Our designated industrial properties also get, I think it's around a couple $100,000 for the dip requisition. It actually works out to our favor because previously we used to pay municipal affairs for that. And now they've given us the license to tax a little bit extra to those properties to pay for that assessment, which they've taken and then contracted us to provide. And it's a little convoluted.
They've made it more complicated, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Appreciate what you're saying, Cindy, definitely. Yes.
Option 1, it says increase to the farm tax rate for this 2020 budget, but we can revisit it next year at our budget meetings as well. So we don't necessarily lock ourselves in for the next 3 years, correct?
Right. Nothing today is locked in, right? We'll come back with the interim budget. Hopefully we've got a little more information from the province that gives us a little more certainty. We set the interim budget for the beginning of the year. All chaos can ensue those first 2 or 3 months of 2020, and until we bring the actual tax rate bylaw back to you in April, you've got room to adjust.
We can make adjustments at our next meeting, Ellen, in November, when we know more about what the province. It'd be nice to know about MSI as well, the Municipal Sustainability Initiative. I don't know how fast that's going to happen either. So there's lots of unknowns. Okay, I said this, did we vote on, we did, okay. All right, option 1, to include the recommended increases to the farmland tax rate in the 2020 budget and forecasted years as presented. That's basically to go forward into November and see how things are then. So, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Taking us on to the Municipal Energy Manager Program. That's Lane.
That it is. So this item and the next one are both examples of where we're coming to you with the suggestion that an investment made now will reduce some costs in the future. This particular item is one that the City of Brooks is wanting to move ahead with. They can move ahead on it independent of the county, but they have approached us about the possibility of the county participating. While it is a 2020 budget item, it will be required direction prior to the approval of the 2020 budget so that an application can go forward on this particular item. The opportunity is for us to participate with the City of Brooks in hiring a municipal energy manager. The services of that position would be made available, of course, to all the county facilities. Plus, I think there's an opportunity for us to provide the services of that position for the benefit of all of the community groups that operate facilities as well. And those groups obviously are relying on volunteers. They don't have the time, the technical background, the expertise to deal with the issues that a municipal energy manager would be able to deal with when it comes to reviewing the status of their facilities and recommending some upgrades that might save those organizations energy costs in the future as well. So that's what this particular one is about. The cost to the county over a 2-year period is basically $8,500 and $9,500 respectively in each of those 2 years. It would have just the 2-year life to the position. It would be a contract position that the City of Brooks would administer.
So, Lane, you said that this person would have the capability and abilities to review all of the facilities within our region, basically, like our little halls and...
Correct. Well, it would be all of the county-owned facilities for sure. And then hopefully we would be able to have them also provide energy audits for the community group facilities as well.
Questions? Ellen?
So once this is done, what would the result tell us? What can we do with those results once we have the answers?
They would tell you what upgrades, changes can be made to energy consuming devices within each property, and whether or not it would be economic to change out systems, lighting systems, heating, air conditioning, anything that is consuming energy.
Kelly?
So it sounds good, but taking it to the next step. So a lot of our mini munis or our community organizations get this information. Is that where it ends then, Lane? Because that's where our service groups fall down. They have to then write a 50-page grant application or source tons of money to make these facilities energy efficient. So does it end there once the report is given?
The services that would be provided under this program would basically end there, but with that information in hand, then groups would be able to make an educated and informed decision about steps they want to take to improve energy efficiency within their facilities. There may be additional programs that they can then turn to implement the recommendations coming out of an energy audit. Those programs have certainly been in place over the last 2 or 3 years. Whether they continue going forward is questionable. But if they had had this information in hand, they could have made an informed decision when the funding programs were in place, and it's possible that there will be a continuation of them. We don't know. But without that information, no one would be able to make decisions as to what the next steps that they should even be considering.
Lane, this is time sensitive, tied in also with the budget?
The actual expenditures would be incurred in 2020, but the application needs to go in quickly. So yes, we need to have direction on whether or not we're prepared to participate.
And so possibilities of getting approved, no idea until you send it in and wait and see.
It's fairly definite that it would be. The City of Brooks has been advised that the funding is in place. It is available on a first-come, first-served basis for organizations that get their applications in place. So they're quite confident that an application that goes in on a timely basis will be approved.
Anne-Marie?
I'm just going to think out loud here. I can see where the City of Brooks will benefit from this. But if we leave Bazzano, Rosemary, and Dutchess out with their facilities, because they're not included in this proposal, how many do we really have left in the county where people don't know what they need to do? And I'm looking at Clarence, Rolling Hills, Scandia. They have older facilities. Like, do you really need to hire someone to go out there and tell them that the insulation is from 1950? I'm just, thinking out loud. I don't know.
Yeah, and Lane, this is tied into solar, right?
Not necessarily.
No?
Once an energy audit has been done, they will know what their consumption is. They will know what alternatives could be tapped into to offset the current energy consumption. If organizations want to go ahead with installing renewable energy systems to provide some of their energy requirements, they can do that based on information that would come from this. Applications to move ahead with a microgen system usually require details about what is your historical energy consumption, how much is going to be produced by a renewable energy system that would be installed. Solar PV on facilities is one option for renewable energy to be generated from or for those facilities. So solar could be an option that's open to them, but the information that would be provided would help them make decisions as to what else could be done to just move ahead with energy savings on the operation of their facilities.
And further to what Anne-Marie said, does this immediately exclude the other municipalities? I mean, even if they're not named in this application, does it mean they couldn't, their facilities couldn't be involved? Or you don't know, maybe?
I'm guessing it would be a matter of how much time would be available to look at all the facilities in the likes of Bassano, Rosemary, and Dutchess. It would probably be a matter of goodwill to reach out and make the services available, but it's a question of whether or not there will be enough time available to take on those additional communities as well.
Holly, you had your hand up. Other questions, comments? Will the city proceed without us?
They will be.
They will be?
It's just a question of whether or not we want to benefit from the service that would be provided as well.
Right.
If we're not involved in funding the position, then we wouldn't be entitled to any of the service that would come from it.
Right. And we need to make a decision on this today because time is of the essence on this one.
Not necessarily today, but if there's no interest, then that's basically a decision. If there is interest, we can bring it back and have further discussion during a future council meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. Lionel.
You know, we've had very low electrical generation costs for quite a number of years. But I don't think we should get lackadaisical about that and assume they're going to continue, because it can't really continue. And so energy efficiency assessment, I think, is a very good idea. And especially if we can add some sort of a component to perhaps produce some of our own, I don't think that's all bad. So I do agree with this, and I would approve the motion to proceed.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Blaine? No? Want to vote on it? All right, I'll call the question. This would be a budget, referred to the budget, I guess. All right, all in favor of Lionel's recommended action for at the bottom of that last page there? Opposed? I think it's lost. 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Motion was defeated. So got that job out of the way, Lane. That, oh, we're at council initiatives. Was there any?
No, there is one more.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So this next one is just a question of whether or not there is interest in moving ahead with an application to proceed with participating in the municipal solar program. So there is still funding that is available. Again, this is a question of whether or not investing dollars now to save energy costs in the future is a cost-effective decision. It would require an investment, there's no question about it, but it does have an opportunity to provide a payback over, it's estimated to be a 5 to 6 year period. So, in summary, that's really the issue to decide. We have an opportunity to apply under the program that is still in effect. We would be able to install solar that would service this facility. The majority of that, not the majority, but a good portion of the funds would be provided by the grant program. Is there interest in participating?
So that would possibly be like this panels on the roof type of program, Lane?
Well, it would be panels that would service this facility,
Yeah.
whether it's on the roof or ground-mounted systems. It would be located around the yard.
Gotcha. Okay. Ellen?
So the 5 to 6 year payback, does that system have to be replaced then, or does it have a longer useful life?
No, these panels, they anticipate that the life is going to be 25 years. So you're money ahead over the long term.
Kelly?
So did you check in with Shortgrass? And what did you learn there?
Well, they're certainly supportive of the program and have felt that it has been worth their time and effort. I think that it hasn't met their expectations fully going in, but they're still feeling it's been a beneficial decision for them.
Yeah, from what I understand, they were promised a 4 to 5 year payback as well. And it looks like it'll be 12 years, is what the talk around the table is.
Anne-Marie?
Lane, refresh my memory on that piece of land that we have here and that solar company that was interested in that.
Okay, it is Canadian Solar that had negotiated a lease for the residual lands out back. The lease option agreement is still in effect, and the company is still hoping to move ahead with the project. It's not one of them that they have been approved for already. They are moving ahead with other projects on other lands that they have already secured. They're optimistic that there will still be an opportunity for them to do that. That will be a utility scale project. All of the energy produced from that project, if it does move ahead on our lands, will go directly into the grid. This would be what we refer to as a microgen project, where it feeds the energy requirements for this facility first and foremost. Any excess is then exported into the grid.
So this is the one, I'm getting these two confused. Is this the one that is a non-committal process, it says, that will help determine if your proposed solar project is eligible for funding under, like this Stephanie that has responded to you in the email? She says that, Lane?
Well,
Is that to do with this or with the last one? I'm getting confused.
with the last one.
That was the last one. Okay, I'm sorry. Wayne?
Now, I see here that our portion of this would be about 360,000. Now, we could actually borrow the money for this, and pay it over a certain amount, so we don't have to come up in this budget 360,000.
We would,
Because we're trying to find $2.5 billion here, and if we can, say, borrow this money and pay it off over, say, 5 years or something, that would make it easier for our budget, is where I'm coming from with this. And in the long run, it would probably be a savings for the county because we'd be generating electricity on our own. So we have some options there of how to pay for it.
Other comments? Holly? Slower. Ellen?
And maybe going forward, technology always gets better, and it might be worth waiting and see what the technology does. And perhaps there will still be grant out there available.
Clarence, you your hand up? No?
What Ellen just said is very true. Is this technology going to be out of date in 4 years? Should we be looking at some of these things and saying, hey, if it doesn't pay without a grant, we shouldn't be doing it? I don't know, I'm just very leery when there's money being thrown to do something and then you hope that the payback is there. Lots of things can change in the time. I'm all for renewable energy and all that, but just something doesn't seem right sometimes in some of this stuff. And I don't know what it is, but it just gives me this queasy feeling.
I'm hearing that you guys would prefer just to take this as information. No one's jumping at it. So, is that fair? If you think otherwise, yell loudly. Otherwise, we'll just take it as information today and see what happens. So we're just lightening your load every which way, Lane. Thank you for your work on this stuff. It is appreciated. Council initiatives now, right? Anything from council? Don't think so. All right. If there's no further need for us to be here, Matt, thank you. Oh, Anne-Marie.
Mark left, but do we still have a paving list?
Yeah.
And
we have a plan still.
No. My road is again 18.2. And you know, I was thinking about that mile stretch, and if there is a way that we can combine it with a Brooks paving project, so we don't have to pay that mobilization fee twice. And if that, we don't have to do it right away, but something to keep in mind. And I don't know what you guys think about, but that's that mile between Lake Newell Road and the Kinbrook Road. And I got quite a few calls from people that want that road paved. And, you know, I do tell them that we have no money, but that was something I was thinking about, if we could combine it with maybe another paving project in a close proximity so we can save money there.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Tracy?
Yeah, I have items on the paving list too, if we were, and it's to the aqueduct from Highway 1A to the aqueduct, because that is part of, that road requires a lot of maintenance, and it's very highly traveled, and it's to a tourist destination, which is really big. But again, for that stretch, and I can't remember, I think Mark was going to look, or maybe Mark and Jeff have some pricing on it already, because we have kind of thought about it, but
Trace, is this different than the calcium road that we were talking about today?
it's, yep. But he was going the other way, though.
But it's talking... You're talking about the number 1 stretch south. Yeah. So it was on that list, is what people are saying.
List of removing calcium. Yeah.
I think there were two, they were both. Yeah. I think they both were on for removal of calcium. So might be good to bring up in the November meeting. Any other council initiatives? Lionel? Well, I guess we can check that out. There were 2 for sure, and yeah. Whatever the case, it can be talked about again, but we can talk about the paving plan too. I think our last talk about the paving is that we've got the big projects with the province ongoing right now to finish up. The pavement out to number 36 south from Kimbrook is wonderful. And I'm assuming the work on 876, Anne Marie, the Patricia Highway Road is moving along. Are they moving poles yet?
Yeah, they're moving the power lines. Hopefully, like Mark said, the dirt work and the shaping of the road will happen this year and paving in the spring.
So those, I think, were the 2 the big projects to get paid for before we started paving more. So there's nothing wrong with adding to the paving list and continue to keep that in mind, because that's the only way we will get more paving done. And we've done lots, and it's been good. It's helped all of our residents. Anything else for council initiatives? Any questions? Matt, thank you for your work on this, and appreciate the information ahead of time and all the stuff that you give us spur of the moment too. So we'll wait and in great anticipation. Thank you. Thank you, Lane. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Sandra, for weathering the day with us. And of course, thank you to Cindy and Kathy and Holly. Yeah, well, that's good. It's very enjoyable to have someone with us. You'll be dying to do it. You'll leave the school board soon and join the council. All right, Clarence will adjourn the meeting at what time, Clarence?
2:43.
It's taken me years, but I actually write it down now.